happened, everybody? Yanko and I didn't even really discuss who was going to do the intro today, but since I jumped on and I am feeling myself for sure because I just gave myself a cupping session, which was amazing. I'll do the intro. So welcome to episode 67 of For No Particular Reason. I am your host, Kerri Lewis, alongside my incredible co-host Yanko Yankov, and we are here to discuss whatever comes to our heart in any given moment at any given time. So what's going on in your world today, Yanko?
I was having this great idea when the countdown goes away to say, "Hello, is this thing on?"
Oh my gosh, my nephew literally will, when his voicemail is hello, hello, hello. Oh, psych, I'm not here. I'm like, dude, you're
I'm
annoying.
not here. Yeah, not for those, but this is great. Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. Like Kerri said, I'm Yanko, and we're gonna have an amazing episode today. I don't know what we're gonna talk about, but I'm sure we're gonna get something from the universe that it's gonna come up, and we're gonna talk about it.
I love that. So you know what? Here, I'm gonna drop what I read by Terrence Howard, which I loved so much, and I
I
want
love
your
them too.
thoughts.
Yeah.
Okay. It said everybody wants healing until the medicine shows up in the form of discipline. And I was like, damn, mic drop, baby, because it's true. And look, here's the thing, guys. The reality is it doesn't have to be big, massive steps, but it requires you to take action and then to consistently take action. And so I'm curious what you think about that statement and what you would add to it or disagree with if you do.
No, I love them too. This is why me and you were aligned because a lot of the stuff that you like, I also like, and we just kind of resonate with a lot of people that do the work or gone on the journey or look deeper within to find out who they are. It is like that, but in we're always conditioned to move from suffering to joy, and look for the easy way to go back into or full whole and complete. And so if that involves suffering, yeah, discipline or something you're not used to, you're not going to want to do that. So it's 100%.
Yeah, and that's, I think for me, and I can only speak to my journey, but my journey required me to take consistent small action every day, right? When I and I had a very strong, is a good word, victimization complex. Like the world owed me, life was unfair, it's everybody's fault, right? Like that was truly my lens in which I projected into the world. And so when I realized, I mean, that way of thinking isn't getting me anywhere except for disliking myself even more, I started to look at tools that would help me change my perspective and frame of mind. And so it was a gratitude practice that I really started to cultivate, but I had to do it every day. And the reality is, I didn't want to. I still wanted to be victimized by life, not because I purposefully had that lens, but it's a habit. That was my habit. My habit was to feel badly. And so it took effort to change the way in which I viewed the world. And it's interesting, Yanko, because I was on the phone with a client yesterday, a lovely individual, and they said to me, it's genetics. You were born happy. There's just no way. And my reply was, I remember thinking the same thing as you. I remember I would see happy people on social media or out in the streets, and I would totally tear them apart in my head and be like, oh, you fake, you not real, or you must have had it easy. You never had trauma in your life. And what I shared with this individual yesterday was no, it's an everyday constant choice between am I going to feed my fear, my suffering, or am I going to feed love? And more often than not now, because I've consistently leaned into my disciplines, I feed love.
Yep. I mean, I kind of went through the same thing, but it was probably conditioning because of the environment and everything, and the mindset that the strongest always win. And a lot of the times you're the victim of circumstances or somebody like being stronger than you, or putting you in a position and thinking that yeah, that was out of my control. I was the victim in the situation because I was forced by circumstance or something else, not knowing that what you sow you reap. And you're in control.
Woohoo!
Yeah, you're in control of your life or your destiny or whatever. And it's very empowering because you have all those things, you just don't know. Again, it's kind of a nice way as an excuse to think it's genetics. I even had situations when people will approach me and they'll be happy, and I'll be so pissed or miserable because I'm in this situation, and I'll think they're just having fun on my expense. They're like enjoying my suffering, and that's why they're so happy. They're like smiling and happy, and I'm like so miserable. But yeah, it's practice. I
It
mean,
is
you
practice.
condition you condition yourself to be at that place, and then you can uncondition yourself and condition yourself to be something else. But again, I mean, you come as a little child, and you don't know anything, and the world gives you name, your family gives you language, they tell you who you are, this and that, and they have certain expectations based in their upbringing, like you got to be this and that, and mom sees you in a one way and dad sees you in another way. Then grandparents come in, they see you in a totally different picture, and the conditioning begins.
Yep. It's so well,
Yeah.
think about it. Our belief systems are based on how other people perceived us when we were little, right? I've always been a highly emotional individual, which for a long time I thought that was a bad thing. Now I appreciate it. But um and people would say, "Oh, you're too emotional. Oh, you're a crybaby." So I took on this belief that there was something wrong with me for feeling my feelings strongly, right? And so we are absolutely a product of everybody else's perspective when we are a young child. And I do fundamentally believe it's our responsibility as an adult with access to information to make different choices, to practice disciplines, to learn who we are outside of the ideology of other people. But again, it will always come back to disciplines. And look, the reality is, guys, I'm not 100% perfect at my disciplines. I fall out of routine. And you know how I know when I need to come back home to routine? I start to be more reactive than responsive. I start to feel icky, sticky rather than moving, flowing, enjoy. And rather than sitting in judgment of myself for not following through on the discipline that I know helps support my overall wellness, I just go back to it. And I think that's the important piece for individuals to understand as well is you're not going to move forward by tearing yourself down, right? Everything is an opportunity to learn yourself. So if you recognize that something works for you and you've moved away from that thing, don't beat yourself up for it. Just start doing that thing again. And then you start to build the momentum towards feeling good again. And it just keeps building and building.
uh, it's and it's not only as children, we do that as even as adults. Like people tell you, and I catch myself doing that with my little guys sometimes. When something happens, I say, "What's wrong with you?" And that's kind
Mm,
of like, and then that puts the thought inside his head, thinking that there's something wrong with me. You know what I mean? It could be also when you're an adult and you're in this kind of situation, and if you don't know who you are, then Yeah, I mean, people will tell you because they see you differently, and you're gonna take that and you're gonna claim it and start to believe that this is you. So ultimately, I wish for everyone to find out who they are, who they really are, and say, "This is how I am." You don't like to tell me how I am, or this is your opinion. This is how you see me, but this is how I am.
Yeah.
And be comfortable with yourself. Yeah.
And it takes practice, right? Like, how often have I been told I'm too loud, I talk too much, I am too emotional, whatever. Yeah, my mother still has very interesting perspectives about me. But the reality is that gets to be her truth. What do I care? I'm not living her experience. She can think I'm a piece of shit for all I care. The reality is I know how I show up, and ultimately I am responsible for um what I put out in the world. Going back to what you say, what you sow you will reap. So it's interesting. I was talking to another individual yesterday who at this current time is moving through some challenging things, and as a
Mhm.
result presents very angry, right? Very, very angry individual. And I shared with this individual, the choice that you continue to make to project that anger is what's causing you to have the experiences to keep feeling and feeding that anger. Because if you believe something, then the world is going to reflect back to you the belief that you hold on to. And so it is incredibly important to recognize that, our thoughts and our beliefs and our behaviors and how we respond to situations is the result of our own internal narratives and stuff. And so if I can look at myself and say, at the end of the day, I showed up as love. I may have offended people by swearing. I may upset people by having boobs tattooed to my arm. Whatever. I know that I showed up in kindness and compassion. Well, I know that I'm attracting joy and good into my life, and that's what I want. So why would I be bothered by what other people think?
And that's the other thing. If you start doing the best you can and you're happy with, because you give yourself 100%, and you're not hard on yourself. Like, say you're in a bad situation and you make the best you can in that bad situation, and you know that you did the best you can. You could have done anything else. You go after that and you run through the whole thing, and you've done the best. That makes you happy on the end, because you weren't just looking for excuses. You weren't just like, going just to get going or whatever. And when you find that peace, it's just like, I know I've done my best. I'm happy with that. If somebody else isn't happy, that's up to them, because
Yeah.
they're not me. They're not in my shoes. They're not in my skin sack. Like, they don't know. They don't know the experience I have. They only have an illusion or some kind of perception that they know who I am or what I'm capable of or what's going on.
Based on
So
their own beliefs.
that's right. They
It's
just see
based on
you.
their crap.
Yeah. Based on their conditioning, and this is why sometimes I feel like we're living in La La Land, because we like order and all that, but then at the end of the day, everyone just has their own things that are going inside, and they're doing what they think they're supposed to do. So yeah, but going back to being loud, and nothing's wrong with being loud or whatever, because if you
I'm
hear,
singing at the top of my lungs, and I don't
yeah, there you
care
go.
what is
It's
done.
like, if you're here, the world needs you to be your authentic self.
Yes, I
So
love that
you're
you said that.
gonna, like, yeah, you're gonna make some people joyful, and some people won't be joyful, and that's okay, because, like, you got to be you. That's the bottom line.
Listen,
Yeah.
I was at spin class this morning at 5:15, and yeah, Rebel yelled, "No, white wedding." I don't know. Billy Idol, which I love
Mm.
Billy Idol, okay? And when Stefani, I'm Just Girl came on, shut up. I'm sitting there running, I'm singing. I was just a happy person because I could sing while I'm destroying my legs and building my booty, which is coming along and I'm quite happy with it. Total side note. But you know what? Yeah, but here's the thing, because I always try to bring it back to like real, real, real. Because you and me still have, like, we still have an ego, right? So yesterday I got up at 4:30 in the morning to go to boot camp. Never been to boot camp, want to try boot camp. So I show up, and this instructor had to be the least welcoming, engaging individual I've ever come across in my fitness career. And I've been working out for a long time, like 16 years, whatever. And so I asked this individual, what do I need for weights? And they looked at me and they're like, well, I don't know. I haven't worked with you. I've worked with all them. And I was Yanko, right? It's 5:15 in the morning, okay? I meditate after I work out, so, like, I hadn't really granted. It took me 20 minutes to come back to love. I'm working out, and I'm, like, going like, in my head, I'm like, "I know this woman did not." And so, for everybody out there who thinks that me and Yanko just make all of these great choices all the time and we sit and enjoy, oh, no, no, no. It takes a lot of work. And the difference is I keep coming back to it. So I will tell you play by play what happened. I'm pumping weight and I get this lady and then I'm like, wait a minute, Kerri. Does that serve you? Does that serve her? No, let it go. And then I'm like, how dare she? And then I'm like, and it's like this dialect. I'm like, who she thinks she is? This is so and then I'm like, but wait a minute, I don't know her perspective. And that goes to what you and me were just talking about when it comes
Yep.
from we have our own narratives, we have our own stories, right?
Yep.
She could have social anxiety. Like there's a million reasons that she showed up that way, but I came from my lens and I'm like, I'm
Me,
popping off on this poor woman in my head. Wow,
maybe that's just how she is.
while working while working to come back to love. And I think that is the work that we do moment by moment by moment, which is why some of the greatest spiritual scriptures I've ever read will always say it's work, it's constant awareness and work, it's constant choice. And then the choice is to come back into presence. So, like, I'll remember, oh, let me look at the flower and I'll look at the all this beautiful stuff, and then I'll go into cuckoo la la land again, as you say, and then I have to remember and come back.
I I've seen somebody telling story. It was a comedian, but he was telling the story about this guy that anytime he opens his mouth, all kind of garbage comes out of it, and everyone was thinking that this guy is just like so bad because he was sweating, he was doing all this kind of stuff. But he says, in the end of the day, like we're walking, and then he sees this like homeless or drunk people or drunk person falls on the street, and then he goes in and swearing on him, and he goes like, "Oh, you're gonna see somebody's gonna kill you here," and helps him out. But at the end of the day, he helps him out, pulls him out of the street by being him, still, throwing all this garbage out of his mouth. But it doesn't mean he's a bad person. He saves the guy. He doesn't
Yeah.
let him sit on the street. So you can't just judge somebody by what they say and how they say it. They might just that's just might be just how they are. You know.
Well, that's why, I mean, I really, again, I ground before I show up in the world. Although if I'm working out, I'm not grounded. So just so you know, you might get hot and spicy Kerri. But I ground, but the reality is you're 100% right. I work with people who are in active, crack addictions, who are in active turmoil, and they are some of the kindest people, and they do present with garbage coming out of their mouths. And I will say, like, even yesterday, uh, I also have boundaries, right? So if I'm working with an individual and they have, you know if they're being incredibly abrasive or derogatory towards other individuals, I'll just simply say, listen, I can bear witness to your struggle, and you can even bend and use words that maybe don't feel aligned for me, but to just go on tirades like that, I don't tolerate, because that's the energy that I'm sitting into, and I'm not willing to be in that space. So I can love people and see them, and also be like, nah, if that's the space you're in, hit me up another time, and I'm happy to see you then.
I love that. That this is because healthy boundaries. It's really it's a good start.
Well,
A lot of
especially
people don't.
when you work in
Yeah, exactly.
in
When you're
my
working with
profession,
people, yeah,
because
yeah.
I do work with low vibrating people. And here's the thing, what I love that you said is they are all love. There's not ever been one person I've come across, and I've worked alongside and talked to people in prison for murder, that had at the core of themselves isn't a beautiful person, that has so much to offer, that extends themselves in kindness and compassion in little ways. It's just that we as a society have been trained and conditioned to look at one aspect of an individual. And so we blanket statement people as like being horrible individuals, when really most people operate, I mean, all people operate from their experiences and conditions that they had in as a young baby and child. So why would I condemn somebody to a life of being a horrible person, when the reality is they are loved? It just is masked by people's perspectives and stories they've told themselves, and habits that they've kind of fallen into.
Why do you think people say I can't figure you out? Because everyone takes a certain amount of time to build an idea of who you are to figure you out.
I
And
can't
after they
figure
figure
myself out. Are you kidding me?
and after they figure you out in their head, it's done deal. You're figured out. There's nothing more about you.
Well, and it's so true. I'm gonna give you this. This is a really good example. So I've been going to a gym for 5 years, 4 years, and I mean, I'm generally a really happy person. I'm vibing to my music, I'm doing my thing, whatever, right?
Hmm.
Well, I had a situation that unfolded as a result of my own stuff, and I get that. But after like a week of total incompetence on all of the people who worked there's at self, I was like pissed, right? So I'm at the gym, and I see the regulars, and they're like, "How you doing?" I'm like, "I'm good." I was like, "Actually, no." I'm like, "I'm super frustrated at the incompetence, da, 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 da," right? So all of a sudden, my amazing friend Jay goes, "Kerri, I never ever thought that you got mad. You're always happy." I'm like, hell yeah, I get mad. I'm a human being. I'm like, I'm feeling spicy right now. And and it was just the funniest thing, because, again, and this is where I take full responsibility for my actions, right? I know that I projected anger and frustration. That's an energy out into the world. So if that comes back to me, I laugh. I'm like, oh, that's Angie, coming back to me. Somebody flipping me off on the street or cutting me off, whatever, right? Like, I'm gonna get that energy back. So I own that. But I'm also human. So when I do behave that way, I'm not gonna beat myself up. I'm like, it is what it is. And yet people don't see me that way often. So when they see me, they're just like, who, what? And I'm
But
like, yeah, listen, I'm a
yeah,
human too.
here's the thing though. You caught it, and that's why you're laughing.
Oh yeah.
You caught it, and that's part of the practice. Of being mindful of not reactive to your instincts. And when you sit and you're mindful and you watch those kind of things, then you're not working. You're not. operating out of animal behaviors. You're mindful when things come up. You see it, and then when you recognize it, it goes all because you recognize it. It loses its power, it goes away, and then you laugh because that's it's not there, it's gone. Yeah,
Yeah. But it goes back to what you were saying, though. I mean, that story is a great example of we figure people out and then we assume we know them. And that's why, again, I don't know who I'm going to be in an hour from now. You know what I mean? And so it's just really understanding like we don't know. Um, we don't know. John 3:16. I don't know that. Do you know that?
that's a verse, but I don't know
Yeah,
the
well, I knew that.
if he wants to
If you wanna
elaborate and
elaborate, I would
yeah,
love that.
sure, yeah, me
Yeah, but
too.
anyway, so that's my thing is, you know, and I always go back since we have this amazing person sharing their thoughts, be act in childlike wonder, right? Like the reality is when you're constantly curious, you don't assume you know anything and you're open to all possibilities. And that's a gift we give ourselves all the time. It's just you and me called this show for no particular reason because we had no idea what would unfold in each week, even in each moment. I mean, I can go on a tangent, like I'll start singing, whatever. And so we show up in childlike wonder all the time. And I, you know, we're at episode 67, and I still find myself having a really good time. So,
Yeah, me too. I was gonna say, it just it is what it is. Um, and with like finding who you are and becoming non-reactive to your animal instincts, just being present and watch everything unfold. Um, you change your consciousness. You change your perspective changes. And this is why they say, before alignment, you split wood, carry water, and after that, you're the same person. You split wood and you carry water.
yep.
Nothing changes on the outside. Nobody can tell anything, but you're totally different.
Well, it's
Your
interesting.
mindset, it's different.
I think that I have to disagree with you a little bit there. I can tell. I can tell when people do the work and people don't do the work. And it's just a knowing. I try, and I'm not always great at this. I try not to make up a story around individuals. Like I know somebody who's digging in, and like because there's a light in their eye, there's a joy, there's just this warmth, this exchange. It's like this felt understanding, and and it's so yummy. I mean, and that's why I love people. For example, there's a gentleman, Fidel, who we're going to have on the show that I am putting you in touch with today. I met him, and in 2 seconds flat, I'm like, oh my god, I'm home. I'm with my people, right? Because you just know,
Yeah,
you know.
you know.
And then
I
there's other
mean,
people that I can love, but know that I'ma love you from afar. I'ma love you and let you have your experience. But I'm gonna do it here, and you can do it over there.
but ultimately, there's no over there. Everything
Well,
is.
that's fine, but while they're operating in unconscious ego, it's you can enjoy your space over there. I listen, there are many family members that I love immensely that I have zero issue holding boundaries to and not engaging because I'm not interested in having that experience anymore. I've done that dance and I've moved on, you know?
Yep. Fair enough. Again, this is a judgment free zone. You know.
I love that you have hearts on your cup.
Mm, thank you. It's one of my favorites. The other one, it's the blue one with M&Ms. Peanut butter jelly time.
Peanut butter, I don't even know that. But I do love that you sing. Oh my God, Yanko.
Huh?
What? You sing.
What am I saying?
You
Oh, I
just said peanut
sing?
butter jelly
Oh,
time.
yeah. This is one of the memes with, from Family Guy and all that.
You okay, so the universe is
Yeah,
funny because
Adam,
not a reference
anime.
to Family Guy yesterday, and I can't tell you I've never watched an episode of Family Guy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I like certain things that go in and bring me joy. There was the one episode where the main character Peter had this pig going in the ceiling and moving in, and the pig it's like crawling in the ceiling, doing a little marks, and he's saying spider pig, like Spider-Man, but it does whatever Spider Pig does, and it's so funny to watch.
You and Nana would have a wonderful time together,
I
and
know.
me, I
This is
will
this is
be
why I said
happy
like I'll probably join the show one of those days.
to be in. I'll be happy to be in nature, doing getting lost with actual spiders who I like to watch and just witness because I think they're cool. They weave beautiful webs for sure.
I I love nature too, um, but like you said, whatever brings me joy. Sometimes that brings me joy, makes me sing. I laugh at it. It's funny. So yeah,
I love it.
yeah.
So what else you got going on?
Uh, whole not much. Like I said, I almost overslept for this episode.
I know. I love that.
it, I don't know how the weather is where you are, but it's kind of muggy outside. We had some rain and it's dark, and I had the blinds on, and I was thinking it's still dark outside. So I wake up, I just kind of like peek it outside. I'm like, it's still dark. Going back to sleep. So yeah,
That's that.
nothing's going on. I like to plan, but the map it's not the territory. So a lot of the times I'm just open to whatever comes my way, and then at the end of the day I go back and I see how my day goes, and I pick up things that I'm grateful for, because I couldn't predict that something like that will happen, or seeing a friend or connecting with somebody, or who knows, it's a wonder. So anytime I start my day, I have sort of a map, but I don't know where it's going to go. So,
Well,
I
I
can't
love
answer
that
you.
because that's called
I can't.
flow.
Yep.
And a lot of people are very rigid, right? I think about, you know, the analogy that a palm tree in a hurricane will blow with the wind, but if you take an elm in a hurricane, it's in a snap because it's very
Mm,
rigid wood, right? And
mm.
that is what I witness a lot in individuals is rigidity and this need to have things
Control. Yeah.
planned and you got to follow through with that plan to the nth degree. And that's why, I made a commitment to myself that I would only work with a certain amount of clients a week. And the reason why is I wanted to be in flow. If my client isn't able to show up, I don't want to be there. Oh my God, you said you pay her at this time. I'm going to charge you. No, I'm like, cool. When do you want to meet? Because that allows them to one, learn to go with the flow when things happen, but also, well, what do I care? Like if I work with somebody or I sit and sing a song or study scripture or whatever, I mean, I'm still here doing something that brings me joy. So why do I
That's
care
right.
if it looks a certain way? But so
Yeah. I've
many
seen.
people are tied, they're slaves to conditioning for like having that rigid schedule. And I think it keeps them trapped.
Yeah. It takes the joy out of life. And I've seen it too. Like if I have somebody running later, I don't put a story behind it or anything, and maybe they're not supposed to be there.
Yeah.
You never know. Did I tell you this? Like 2 weeks ago, I had this amazing experience where my fog light bulb went off on the car. Like I was going shopping. Did I tell you that story?
No. A what? A
Yeah.
fog light bulb?
Well, the daylight lights that are the lower lights that are on all the time, not the head beam lights,
Yeah.
but the lights that are on. It went off. I went to do shopping, and it went off. In the dashboard went beep. Left side fog light off, and I'm thinking, oh, now I gotta go find a light bulb to replace it, and all this and that, and I'm running in all kinds of stories in my head, and then I'm thinking, well, I'm sitting in the parking lot. Well, wait a minute. I think I have a because they sell them as like package, and I think I have like a spare in the car. So I went to pull it out and see. It turned out that it's the wrong one, anyways. And then I said, the hell with it. I'm just gonna go with the flow, whatever happens. Started the car. Not even you know 10 feet or 12 feet off the parking spot, the light goes off, and I'm thinking, well, maybe it just kind of was flaky and wasn't connecting properly or whatnot. And then in the next intersection, huge pile up with cars. There's ambulances, there is like fire department trucks and everything. And I'm thinking, all right, now I
Thank
get it.
you.
Thank you. It went off. I stopped. I wasn't going like, no, I'm gonna show the universe who's the boss, and I'm gonna go do this and find the bulb and do all these other things. It was just
Yeah.
amazing,
You
and
could have been.
and it still works. It's why did it went off? I don't know.
Well, you don't have. Well, I mean, you do know though, right? Because you avoided a car accident, but
I
it didn't.
know. I could have
So,
been in that intersection. I could have been in there.
so let's talk about flow. So Nana has a dream of being a content creator at New York Comic Con, and this is the second year in a row that he was denied um that badge. But instead of being upset or like, oh, it's not going to happen for me making up stories, he was like, you know what, babe, it is what it is. Within 4 or 5 days, he was invited as a guest to be part of like an after party for Kineticon. And so that's why I'm passionate about sharing with people. Things really do unfold in your highest good, but we stop the flow of energy when we judge it and we try to control the outcome. Because I
Yeah.
guarantee you, if Nana got pissed off or felt some type of way about not getting the badge that he was seeking, he wouldn't have been invited to Kineticon. But because he just allowed things to unfold, the universe was like, here you go, which is proof positive that it's not a matter of if he gets a content badge, it's just when.
Yep. I mean, when the time is right, maybe he needs to learn something more. Maybe he needs a little more motivation because, like, reality of things is that we're chasing things and we think we need them, and once we get them, we're kind of disappointed because now the journey it's over. You get to the point where you're going, and you gotta find a new journey. So I personally don't get disappointed because I don't want the journey to end. I want to be in this wonder moment and see what's going to be the next thing or the next thing or whatever. So if I don't get what I want, it's a good thing because I keep going.
Yeah, I'm not exactly there with you. Sometimes I still get I still try to have my way with the universe. Let me just tell you. I just
No, it's all right. Everyone has that, but like I said, and I'm sorry I cut you off. Finish your thought, and
I
then I'm
cut
gonna
you
go
off
on.
all the time. You're good.
I was gonna say, I had this conversation with a client about meditation, and a lot of people have the wrong impression that you do some kind of visualization or something in your head, but no, you're just observing. You're not doing anything. So you're training your mind and your body to be non-reactive, so that when you're in the midst of crisis or something, you're not reactive because you train that. It's like lifting weight. You do the practice, you sit every day, you observe what's going on, the internal turmoil, whatever it's going on inside. And then when you become non-reactive, it's like you said, it comes up, it's go, you recognize it, you laugh at it, and you keep going.
Yep.
um, but sometimes you need a little more practice, and that's okay. you know I still find things from time to time that I cannot not react to, which is fine too.
Yeah, like incompetence. Oh, you know what? You know what? I like this is total ego, but I don't care. I'm a big person. If I like if you say you're gonna do something, do it. And if you can't, cool. But don't tell me you're gonna do it. And then if you keep telling me you've done it and you still haven't done it, and you keep like that is where I lost my temper. I'm like, but that's
No,
fine.
I know. I know. I noticed that about you, but again, no judgment. Like I just accept you as who you are. So, like
Hey, I
I
love
don't really,
you.
I
I
don't
see it
really,
all.
I don't really care. You're getting something out of it.
Maybe I am, who knows?
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
definitely
yeah,
got a topic of conversation for today out of it, so that works. But
yeah.
I do, I want to bring this full circle because you're exactly right about meditation, and it goes back to discipline, right? Meditation is a
Mm,
discipline. But here's the thing, and this is what I shared with an individual like last week. Even breath work, just focusing on your inhales, your exhales, right? By
mm.
doing that, it helps you be responsive rather than reactive. And if you do it over and over, so if every morning you practice 2 minutes of breath work, right? 2 minutes. And think about what that does to you in 30 days. Now, you know, a coworker does something that irritates you, and in the past you would pop off, but because you've had 30 days of breathing before you make the choice to rant, you pause and you breathe and you make a responsive choice rather than a reactive choice. It's not that you don't take action, you very well may, but what you're doing is you're taking an action that is more from an informed choice rather than just spontaneity of like ugh, and it generally works out better in your favor. I'm just saying.
Did we touch upon why that works when you and the why the breathing works to calm your system down?
Go ahead.
I don't think we've talked about it. Because like, say you're in fly fight freeze mode. There's a tiger and you run. Your system goes in the stress mode and starts receiving all the hormones. And you start running, and then when you're away from danger, the danger is gone, and the system goes back and you start breathing normally, and you breathe okay. Um, so the idea behind is that you're calming your system down when you're like stressed, and you start breathing deep breaths from like belly to tell the system, hey, there is no tiger around here. You don't have to run, just calm down.
Yeah.
And that's why it works. Yeah.
Well, also here, right here, around here is our emotional response system, lower part of the brain. Cognitive response system, responsible for like thought out choices, right? When you're in fight or flight or feeling defensive or in fear, because everything stems from fear, it slows down the chemical response to your cognition, which makes it so it's very difficult to make a logical choice. Like it's
Yeah.
pure
Yeah.
emotion, like you were just responding out of that fear. And so, yeah, it's super important to learn that skill because, again, it works out in the highest good for everybody. And when you're just a really highly reactive person, you're attracting all of this energy that just builds up, and then we wonder why people explode, right? And they just lose it. The other thing is filtering information. I say it all the time, if you're constantly consuming fear-based information, and then your phone, you have notifications on your phone to ping off for every app you own, and then you wake up and you're watching the news, well, you are already totally taxing your nervous system. And then that one thing that happens, you pop off because you're already like at the boiling point without even knowing it, because you're not making conscious choices about what you feed your body and brain.
The system knows how to do it. The body knows how to do it. And we're just remembering or reminding ourselves how to do it. If you watch somebody that's having confrontation with somebody else, you can see that when they don't want to snap, they just go like, and they stop, kind of like do the breathing with, subconsciously without knowing, and then they go, but, and then you go, and they go again, instead of like popping off when they're, in the midst of the thing. So people do it without even knowing it, but it's more powerful when you do it consciously and you get to like calm the system down.
100%. Which is why I continuously encourage people, just pick one small practice. I mean, think about it in the grand scheme of things. And I hear this all the time. Well, I don't have time. I don't have time for self-care. I don't have time to meditate. I don't have time to exercise. I don't have time to food prep. I don't have time. Okay. I'm not even going to change that narrative for you, because I lived in that space at one point in my life. But you can make 30 seconds or a minute of time. Like, that's just, and then if you do that over and over and over and over and over again, well, then you teach yourself that, well, you do in fact have time. You're just not aware of it, because how much time do you spend scrolling social media or watching TV or doing something that adds nothing to helping you grow, expand, self regulate, learn, enjoy yourself, right? Like, and then it just becomes this pattern. So start with a minute of breath work, box breathing. Count in through your nostrils for a count of 4, hold it for a count of 4, out through your nostrils for a count of 4, and hold it for a count of 4. The military does this, right? They teach the troops how to breathe so they regulate their systems in times of high stress. And so if you do that for a minute every single day, think about how much more regulated you would be in 30 days. But again, it's showing up and doing the thing you don't want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's a lifestyle. When I was looking to change the lifestyle that I was living before, of sitting in the front of the computer for 10 hours a day, eating junk food, being really to the point when the body, it's kind of hard to bend and tie your shoes. Unlearning or learning new habits it wasn't an easy thing. And I have a friend at that time. We're still friends, but he's into working out, bodybuilding, and all that. And he was kind of laughing, and he says, "I want to see where you're gonna go." Kind of like it's a lifestyle choice. You understand that? And I'm like, I don't know, but I'll figure it out. And he was right. It took a lot of, to circle back to what you're saying, to be in discipline, to stick to the plan, to be able to change or learn a new habit, or change that thing about yourself. It might sound contradictive of being in flow, because that could be like an escape route and say, well, I'm just gonna be in flow and I'm not gonna change that habit, because we preach about that too. But you got to start from somewhere, put the make the first step
Well,
if you're
and
gonna change something.
moreover, how do people know they're in, like, what flow is, if they're operating from just like massive conditions and patterns, right? Like, And I didn't even know what it was until and every single person gets into flow, because I've looked back at situations when I was relatively unconscious and I was in my zone of genius and forget about it. Like it was just everything was in all cylinders, everything was just unfolding. And I actually have always worked really well in high stress situations at my job. Like, I mean, the more stuff going wrong, the better I am to just like, ooh, let's just like boom. But again, I didn't know that. And so discipline helps you learn yourself to learn, right?
I
When
love
you're
that.
trying to
Yep.
control versus when you're in flow. And you don't
Yep.
know that until you learn yourself. And you don't learn yourself until you've started practicing small disciplines, because those disciplines help you break free from conditions, patterns, other people's
Recondition. Yep.
expectations. And it teaches you just how powerful you are. Like going back to discipline, we have a mid cingulate cortex right up here, guys. I always talk about it because I love it. Responsible for not just willpower, but resilience. If I show up every single day and do the hard thing, right? Got up this morning at 4:30 and went to the gym. Yesterday, got up and went to the gym, right? When something really hard comes up, I've built my resilience muscle. I'm not going to be like, oh, I can't handle this. I'm like, okay, well, I've done hard things before. I can do a hard thing now. And as you continue to do the thing, you're building willpower. So it makes doing that thing easier. And then because we are always meant for expansion and growth, we end up doing another hard thing, but we've already provided ourselves with evidence that tells us, well, I've done one hard thing, so I can definitely do a new hard thing and keep moving forward. And that's how you build a life that you look back on and you're like, wow, I've done a lot of cool, crazy crap in my life.
It's true though. Look back in your life. Um, and that'll probably happen to people when they're at the end of their journey, looking back in their life and saying, man, I've done so much cool stuff.
Yeah. Well, at least for me, because, again, um, my thing was I didn't want to die at 44 like my sister and have regret. And it's interesting because my twin sister and I looked at each other. I don't have regret. I don't. I I really don't. I'm not
That was
perfect.
the next thing. Yeah, that was the next thing I was gonna say.
Yeah,
When you look it back, you don't have regrets.
I
Everything
know, and
it's
I
like I
never
got this
want to
from
live an
this and I
unlived
got
life.
that from that, and yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's the thing is I keep going, but one thing on top of discipline that I want to encourage the listening audience, right? Celebrate yourself every time you show up, right? Yeah, it's amazing to do the breath work, and that by itself is very powerful. But in combination with celebrating yourself, basically saying, oh, good job, you showed up, you're telling your subconscious that felt good, I want to do more of it. You're reprogramming your own brain to choose behaviors that are supportive and loving for yourself. So you're rewiring your brain while incorporating new habits and disciplines. And that's very, very helpful because I didn't always know to do that. And so I would train for an event and boxing and stuff, but I never celebrated myself. I just kind of operated to do it. And I ended up, my subconscious never believed I was worthy of it, so I ended up getting injured or something. I would unconsciously self sabotage because what I was striving for didn't match up with my subconscious belief about myself. And so until I knew to get those in alignment, I would end up self sabotaging without even knowing.
Yeah, yeah.
So it is very, very, celebrate yourself. Again, I am my greatest champion. Like I will like I love myself so much. I will stand by myself when I make mistakes. I will stand by myself when I'm doing well. And as much as it's all great to have other people say, oh, you're doing a good job, that means very little in comparison to me being able to look at myself in the mirror and say, hell of a job today, Kerri. Even if you didn't place top 10, you showed up, you were in the dogfight, and I'm proud of you. And that's an important part of really learning to love yourself.
Well, again, that starts with knowing yourself or having an idea of who you are or what is the self, you know. And then as you find out more about who you are or what you're not or what you are, then you going back to love.
Yep.
So how can you not love yourself? And this is why it's hard to be with yourself, and because you're your own enemy at the beginning, you know,
A
just
hundred
it
percent.
feels miserable to just be on your own, be by yourself. And once you get to that point to love yourself that much, then you're not depending on anything else because you have you.
Yeah, and that's really what I love a lot about my relationship with Nana is we live very autonomously a lot of the time. I mean, I know social media puts us together a lot, but we do a lot of things autonomously for ourselves. And because we do love ourselves. We love ourselves enough to know that we want to honor and spend time with ourselves. And I don't need to be wrapped up in another individual to have a joyful experience. Right before the show, I was telling you, like, I I don't need comedy because I make myself laugh all the time at the hilarity of what I end up getting myself into, like just some of the random stuff that I think. I mean, listen, we're hitting episode 69, guys, and trust and believe my mind went to, oh, we got to talk about sex because, like, that's just how I am. And so I love myself to allow myself to be who I am. And that's a beautiful thing that I give to myself and I give it to the world too.
That's the other thing, though. Um, love for somebody is not this possessing of the person, and constantly have to be with the person, constantly have to give attention to that person. That's possessive love. That's not. It's the wrong kind of love.
And not just with your loved one, that's with your kids too, right? My daughter just turned 16 this week. My other daughter's 17. And right, I see it a lot. And even right, some of the conditioning from my past is like, up, no, and I'm like, nah, nope. They were never mine in the beginning, and they're not mine to cling to now. My job is to love them, right? Through their experiences, not to try to conform them or make them be with me if that doesn't feel good. So anyway, that's our show, Yanko. I love our shows. It's always a good time.
It just goes. I love it too because it's so little pressure to do it, and it's so enjoyable. Having those chats and drinking coffee and
I'm
connecting
drinking
with the
water,
audience.
although I will say that you're
Water.
with this okay.
Oh,
Um
nice.
Yeah, my final parting thoughts today is have a scholastic day.
Ooh, I love that. And my parting thought will be just find out who you are. You know,
Mm.
meet with yourself, find out who you are, and you might be surprised. That's all I'm
And in
gonna
the
say.
words of Yanko last week, you can play with yourself too.
You had to bring it up. You had to. You couldn't let it go. All right.
Never.
Wow, that's a wonderful way to end this episode. See ya all next week. Bye.